Hey everybody, Tommy Norman here with the Nashville Blues and Roots Alliance. Today I have 15-year-old phenom Kiersi Joli. She plays harmonica, has been endorsed by Hohner Guitars ever since she was a little kid. She's still a little kid, what am I saying? But she also sings, she also plays guitar, she also writes all her own music. So very special interview. We actually got to do it at the KHS America where Hohner and other things like Mapex and Sonar, they let us use their little stage, so I want to thank them so much for letting us do that. But we had a great conversation talking about how she got into blues, how we keep the blues alive with a younger generation, demoed a little bit of harmonica skills. Really good conversation. Also, hopefully you are a member of the Blues and Roots Alliance. If not, head on over to bluesandroots.org. Sign up to be a member. It's only $25 for a year. That goes to supporting all sorts of programs like Blues in Schools, the International Blues Challenge, which we won this year, and hopefully you want to go back and win next year, and we want to cover expenses and things like that, and also things like these videos and stuff like that. So if you like the content we put out and all the programs we do, please support it. All of that goes back to the community. It's a total volunteer organization, so every penny we earn goes back to sustaining all of this blues and roots music in Nashville. And now, enjoy my conversation with Kiersi Joli. Tommy Norman with the Nashville Blues and Roots Alliance. I'm here with Kiersi Joli. Thank you so much for coming in here with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. In this cool little space that I know you've been here before, but I have not been here before.
Well, we actually haven't been in this space, but we've been out there. Yeah.
So the KHS America, which is a whole bunch, I didn't even know all these people, was Mapex and Walden and of course Hohner, Harmonicas, which are a sponsor of yours, but they were nice. Jesse Hanks let us use their stage, so thank you to them. But we're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about you. So let's start with just how did you get into music? What kind of brought you into music? And then we'll get into the blues.
Yeah, well, like most people, I mean, when you're young, you just kind of sing along to songs and everything. And so I started singing when I was really young. I got a piano when I was 3 years old and started learning piano. And when I was 6, I got a little set of harmonicas from Santa, and I was like, this is cool. What is it? And so my mom explained to me, she was like, oh, it's an instrument. You blow and draw to make sound. I was like, oh. And so I tried it, and I was like, whoa. Like that was the moment my mind had shifted from, oh, music is cool to this is awesome. And so I had been playing harmonica since I was 6 years old, had a few teachers, and then when I was around 9 years old, I got my first guitar and I started combining the two. And you know, I had listened to a bunch of music, mainly country though, and some classic rock from my parents, but I really didn't get into the blues until I started playing the blues, and that's when I was like, oh wow, like I've just been singing this entire time. When I play the blues, I really feel it. And so we moved to Nashville when I was 9 years old, and I started singing and songwriting and really taking it as a true career and lifestyle.
Okay. So when you said you were kind of in country first and things like that, and when you do harmonica, I mean, there's obviously, some harmonica in country. I don't know if it's a primary instrument, especially a little bit more. Were you listening like older country that had a little bit more harmonica in it, or what were you listening to that you heard the harmonica style that you wanted to play?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I had listened to was more modern country. Okay. I, of course, did hear some older country from my parents. My dad, Kenny Chesney was one of our more modern ones, and then we would listen to a lot of older country, and I would hear harmonica, but I didn't know it was harmonica in it. And so once I had learned that, I was like, oh wow, that made me want to learn and play it even more. And I still play country music, and when I'm playing in songwriting, I kind of have that mesh area, kind of like a Chris Stapleton or Bonnie Raitt kind of sound, where it's like country, rock, blues, all kind of mixed together.
Right. So when you started getting into the blues, who were some of your first influences that really kind of got you going?
Yeah, a lot of my main influences were my harmonica teachers. Sandy Weltman, he had taught me my first blues song, Juke, and I learned that on harmonica. And you know, that's when I learned I was really in love with the blues. Another one of my harmonica teachers, Ronnie Shellis, he has an amazing harmonica 1, 2, 3 class that he does, and he takes certain blues songs by Muddy Waters, Little Walter, all these amazing older harmonica players, and he analyzes their song and he dissects them, each harmonica part. And it was really cool because it wasn't till I started going to his videos and watching this that I really started to listen to the blues music. And so like Coco Taylor is one of my favorite female blues artists, Big Mama Thornton, Little Walter. I listen to Little Walter's That's It a lot. And it's just a harmonica song, you know, just listening to it and kind of like getting the feel and maybe sometimes even playing along with it.
Right. So when you start learning, and we've had this discussion before, I tried to do harmonica once and nearly asphyxiated myself because of just all that in and out breathing, controlling your breathing because it's different. Yeah. Like a piano or guitar, I play this note and that's always an E or it's always a C and it's always here. And if I want to go higher, I just go over here.
Yeah.
And harmonica or any kind of instrument that's relying on breath is completely different. So how was that shift for you going from that instrument to a completely different instrument on how you get the notes you want?
Yeah, I think a big part of it was I was so young that I was able to adapt so well from like going from piano where you're just like moving your hands a lot to like really focusing on your breath and maybe moving your tongue to get a different sound to pitch the bend up or bend it down a little bit. And it felt really comfortable for me. It was one of those things, definitely a God-given talent, where it was just like it came to me so well and naturally, and I fell in love with it and loved expanding my knowledge around it.
And then you get into playing guitar and singing is hard enough. And then playing guitar and singing and playing harmonica at the same time. Was that something that again kind of naturally came because you started it so early, or was that something you really had to work at?
Yeah, well, it was something I really definitely had to work at more. Obviously, I can't sing and play harmonica at the same time. But with playing guitar and harmonica, I even started out with a ukulele before. So I kind of had the rhythm of being like able to strum. And I had sort of put a harmonica to it a little bit. But when I had my guitar, I definitely had to practice a lot with it, especially like getting timing down. I got told by a bunch of my teachers, like, use a metronome. And so I'm just going back and trying to like stay really on that beat while I'm also transitioning from singing to playing the harmonica. It definitely needed a lot of practice. And luckily I did have some natural segue into it. But yeah.
Seems like piano helps with that. If you start with guitar, obviously there are some players who are playing, lead and rhythm at the same time on the guitar if you're a very cool person like Stanley Jordan or Chet Atkins. But most of us are just playing the one thing at a time. But when you're playing piano, you are already kind of accustomed to, I'm playing this over here, and then I'm playing something completely different on top of that. So I would think maybe piano almost helps a little bit to be playing the rhythm on the guitar and then playing the lead on the harmonica.
Definitely. And I had played piano up until I was 6 and got my harmonicas. And when I got the harmonicas, I kind of fell back on piano because I just got so invested into that. But I definitely think, like what you were saying, it definitely did help.
Right. So we moved to Nashville, start writing songs, start getting out there. Tell me about that first thing of really getting out there and saying, all right, I want this to be my career. At such a young age, that's a big commitment. Mom and dad are here, and it's a big commitment for mom and dad's going to do that kind of thing. How did that start to evolve?
Yeah, well, I'm very grateful for my parents and like them taking my passion that I loved and really supporting me so much with it, and like just deciding, you know what, we're going to move to help her with this career. And my sister is also in the songwriting business. And so it was a very grateful thing for me, and very big, and I love them so much. And when we first moved out here, it was a lot of things of just going out and playing or going to open mics. And that's the great thing about Nashville is like there's always somewhere you can go to play. One of my main venues that I've been playing songwriters at is called The Local in Nashville. And, you know, I go there, and when we first started, I had to go in, and like a lot of these places are like family. And so you go in, you meet the people, you say hi, you go in every time they have a songwriter showcase or something. You just go in, you say hi, you get to know them. And it was just that thing of getting to know them and going in and playing wherever I could. I remember when we first got here, we went to Broadway, and I had played on the street, just on the outside of some venue on Broadway, and I was singing and playing harmonica, and at that time when we first moved, I wasn't good enough at guitar and harmonica together, so I would have a little amp with backing tracks, and I would be singing, and I remember someone walking by, and I was singing, and then I started playing harmonica, and he stopped in his tracks, and he was like, you know, I didn't feel it till you started playing harmonica. Like when you started, I really felt it. And it was just a big compliment to me, and I was like, that means so much, as harmonica is my first instrument. But it also meant that I had a lot of growing to do, which was one of the great things. And so I found my guitar teacher, Nikki Hines, and I found my vocal coach, Jamie Wigington. And, you know, I've really started to develop all these other aspects of my career to go along.
And it is a thing, you know, you mentioned Nashville, and we were talking earlier, Twin Kegs 2, which
Yeah.
you know, I know you've played at, and it's a, you know, a home away from home for me of a jam that's been there. But, you know, there is a jam. There's, you know, 3-4 deep sometimes
Yeah.
in Nashville that you can go to and get up and play. Coming in, like you said, when you're new and you come into town, most of them are very accepting, but also you're very young.
Yeah.
So when you come up, did you get any of this, you know, who is this young person coming, especially like a songwriter night, we're like,
Yes.
we write songs,
Yeah.
and, you know, and we're in Nashville and we're songwriters, and who are you to come and write a song? You ain't got no mileage, you know. Have you gotten that, and how do you kind of overcome that?
Yeah, well, that was one of our big things when we first came here. My parents especially were like, she's so young, like we don't know if she's gonna get in anywhere, and like a lot of the bars are like 21 and up. And so it's just finding those certain places, and there would be some times when I'd get on stage and I have my harp rack on and my guitar, and you look out into the crowd and you just see like this kind of interesting look on people's faces, like is she gonna be good, what's gonna happen? And I'd start singing and playing harmonica, and you just like see this intense shock on their face. And doing that, it gave me, and I got told by so many people, like, it doesn't matter whether you're young, like it gives you a better head start and everything, and it gives you more time to grow and learn. And a lot of my co-writers that I've written songs with have been such a great help to help me grow in my writing. And I definitely would not be at the level that I'm at today in either my songwriting, my guitar playing, or my singing if I had not listened to all the people who said, even though you're young, don't give up.
Right. And it is hard, like especially in Nashville, and even like I was seeing Eric Gale, you know,
Yeah.
is a great guitarist, and he came to Third and Lindsley. And he was like, I'm nervous because there's all these Nashville musicians, and they sit in the back and they look like this and they judge you. And like Peter Frampton was there, and he's like, I'm always nervous coming to Nashville. It's a different little environment.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about songwriting.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you approach songwriting, is it something where you're more, I think about lyrics first and then I come up with melody? Do I play something and go, oh, that's cool, I need to put something on top of that? Or is it a little mixture of both?
I definitely would say it's a definite mixture of both. It also depends on who I'm writing with. And that's why I say both, because sometimes when I'm writing with someone, I can tell whether they're more lyric-based or melody-based. And I think a lot of the times when I first get, like, sometimes I'll get a title in my head, or other times I'll be like, one of my songs that I wrote, you know, I was talking to myself upstairs and I just started going, I mean it. And I repeated it over and over, and I came downstairs. My mom was like, what are you singing? Like, who sings that? And I was like, I made it up. She was like, that's really good. And so I took it to my right, and we wrote a song about it. And so it just turned out to be one of those things of kind of using both techniques and just combining them and using the other people you have in the room to build such a great song.
All right. And, when you're writing songs, and so we talk a lot about the blues because I am from the Blues and Roots Alliance, but like you said, you have a good mix in yours. And I remember when we were doing the IBCs in Nashville, we were usually running around with our heads cut off, so I never got to really listen to a lot of the acts. And then when we finally got to Memphis, and I got to come and see her, I was like, man, she is really good. I'm glad, this has worked out really great. But I remember you were playing something. I think I even texted you that night. Like, you were playing something, and you went to this little B minor thing, and I'm like, ooh, that's not 3 chords in the truth. That's something a little extra. So tell me when, you're obviously not trapped by any genre. You like country, you like rock, you like blues. Where do most of your songs kind of fall, or is it just kind of all over the place? And do you even think about that? Like, this is a good song, and I don't care what it sounds like.
Yeah. A lot of my songs currently are in kind of that meshed lane where it's like, oh, this has such a great beat, and it definitely has my voice definitely has some of that country twang into it when I'm singing. But, it also has this soul with the blues, and that's one of the big things that drew me to the blues, especially with singers, is just how much soul. You listen to Aretha Franklin and you're like, oh my gosh. Right. And it leaves you speechless, and to be able to try to put that soul in your own song along with this great melody, this great beat, and these great lyrics, it rounds up to be such a great song. And some of my songs also are just blues, or some of them are just country, and it really helps developing my ear as well, and just listening and understanding those differences and different areas and things you put into a different genre of a song. Right. So I don't want to get too controversial, but it is kind of, there is an album out right now that is a country album that people are like, I don't know if it's a country album or like that. Have you found any gatekeeping where you're like, I'm too country for blues, or I'm too bluesy for country? Have you found any time where you've gone someplace, where they're kind of expecting a certain, some people think country is, Hank Williams. Some people think blues is only Muddy Waters, a certain thing, and you have to be, from the 1950s for that to work. Have you found any gatekeeping in that? And if so, how do you kind of overcome that? I've definitely gone to some places where it's definitely it's Nashville. It's the home of country music, but it's not called Country Music City. It's just called Music City. And that's one of the great things about Nashville is you go to some place and they'll definitely be expecting country music, and you come in with this rock, blues, country song, and it just brings a different emotion to them. And that was one of always the big things when I'm playing, is having the people in the audience feel the emotion that I'm feeling when I'm singing this song. And so it was definitely just about, being me and letting how I play and just letting how I play feel and get it all out. And, what other people think or what they were expecting doesn't matter as long as you're doing what you love and you love what you're doing.
Well, and that sounds, the thing that I always think about when this comes up is, to me, it's, there's obviously structures. There's this is a certain scale or a certain chord structure that is predominantly in this style or things like that. But anytime somebody is playing a song in one of these styles, it's more about, is it genuine?
Yeah.
It sounds like you came from, hey, these are things I was listening to, and this is how it comes out of me. And it genuinely comes out. It's not like you sit down and go, I'm going to write a country song.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a blues hit. This is the song I have. And then does anyone start, you start playing it on guitar and it's more country, and then you add that harmonica, and oh no, this is a blues song. It kind of takes a turn. Have you ever had that?
I have had that a couple times, and in a couple of my songs where I'm playing guitar and my mom's like, isn't this a blues song? And I was like, oh, just wait for the harmonica. And then I'll start playing harmonica, and maybe I'm like, and like I'll start playing harmonica, and like that's when it turns into this bluesy or kind of song. And sometimes I'll even go to my guitar teacher and I'll be like, what chord can I fit in here, or can I exchange to kind of give it the feel that I'm wanting? And he's amazing and has helped me so much with, you know, even developing my guitar skills to where I can take a country song and maybe give it one chord and turn it into like some of the bluesier sound.
Right. And that was kind of what I was hearing that night of this, you know, this song was kind of going where, and those are the songs that I really liked where, okay, this is a familiar pattern, and pop music is kind of like, oh, let me give you this chord you've heard over and over again. And there's comforting from it, but then when it kind of goes, oh, you know, and it goes this way. And it's also, when we kind of talk about gatekeeping, a lot of times people are like, oh, this doesn't sound like the music that I traditionally think about that. But the people you traditionally think about, they started it too. You know, they did something new that nobody had heard before as well. It just then became the thing. Yeah. So it's interesting that you have this, you have a wide palette to kind of play with.
Definitely, yeah.
Interesting. So we brought some harmonicas.
I did, yes.
So I don't know how that's going to do with these mics, but let's try it out anyway. I think it'll work fine. So let's maybe, when you pick up a harmonica, you just got a brand new harmonica. Honor gives you a brand new harmonica. Like with guitars, I have a couple of riffs that I'm like, these are my go-to riffs to kind of test this guitar out and see if I like the sound. Do you have some go-to harmonica things that you play?
Yes, I have one song, and it's an original that my first harmonica teacher, Sandy Weltman, actually wrote for me. And it's the first like original blues song that I ever really started knowing as, oh, other people can write songs, because I was like 6 or 7 and I was like, songs are just songs, they came out of nowhere.
These are all the songs. There are no more songs.
And so he wrote it. I think that's probably the first time I had ever been like, oh, this is an original. He wrote this. He wrote it for me. I can play this, and then I could add lyrics or a different sort of add. And so it's called Darker Than Blue, and it's this is the main thing that I play whenever I like have a new harmonica that I'm wanting to test out. But
And that was like an intro song for you?
Yeah.
I guess I'd pass out trying to do it. So that's great. So when, you know, I know also, I love that you really, I guess, you know, I'm not a harmonica guy. So but like you see, I guess like Sonny Boy Williams and stuff like that, the guys who really use their hands a lot to kind of really get that accent on it. When you play through the holder.
Yes.
And who does your holders? I can't remember the name.
That is a organization called Dynamike.
That's right, Dynamike. Good guys. We've met them before. They've been very good supporters of us. So does that change how you play if you are playing guitar and doing that? Because you can't do those same kind of accents.
Definitely. And like, I mean, I obviously can't hold the guitar and play harmonica and do the whole hand thing, but one of the big things is like you have a throat vibrato where you can go and that kind of like helped add, as well as doing like a warble where you're just like, and it helped me to accentuate my harmonica in a way where I didn't need my hands and make it still sound really good.
Right. And really, you know, still pour that feeling into it. Right. So also, when I kind of think about harmonica, this is one of my favorite movies. It's a cheesy movie from the 80s. called Crossroads.
Okay, yeah.
Have you ever seen it? Maybe mom and dad may have seen it. It's got Ralph Macchio in it, the Karate Kid guy in it, and he's this young guy who's becoming, and they talk about making the train, talking to the train, and if you can talk to the train. And I know you've done this because I've seen you do it before. So you can give me the train's coming by and we're talking to the train. Give me a little talking to the train.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I think that's the blues standards. You gotta be able to make the train
Gotta
talk
be able to make the
if
train,
you're doing that. So hopefully you don't have to go and be a hobo on the road and wonder the delta to figure out how to do that. So when you are, so let's say you were recording a song and you are coming in to put the harmonica on it. Do you think about, okay, when I play this live, I won't be able to do that. Will you change, or will it just have to morph a little bit when you play it live to where you play it a little differently?
It will definitely morph a little bit, and a lot of the playing that I do when I'm on stage is not, it's improvisation. I haven't practiced it at home. I mean, I have, but like, it's all very different from, I could play something totally different 5 minutes beforehand than what I play on stage. And when I go into a studio and I'm recording that harmonica, it's like I'm thinking of the best way to help the song and to build the song with my harmonica adding to it.
Right. So when you play with a band, and I think I've seen you do this before, where not all the time you're playing guitar. Sometimes you will, so you can switch back up and go back in and kind of play a little bit more of the harmonica style. Also, I know your band has kind of evolved over time. So when you are selecting your band, that's a big important thing. Do you think about, is this band, versatile enough to play these different types of things? And what are they going to sound like? If I hire a bluesier guitar player, is he going to be able to play this country stuff, or vice versa?
Yeah.
Does that kind of enter in your mind? You're like, I just want the coolest people or the best people. How do you select bandmates?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a matter of my guitarist who I took to Memphis. I had been friends with him for definitely a while, and we had met on Instagram originally, and I met him for the first time and played with him for the first time at Fox and Lock, and we had played at one of their just open mic things where you sign up and you go and you play your songs. And it was in that moment that I was playing with him, and I had heard him online, but like hearing in person is so much more. And I knew, I was like, this guy he had such a repertoire of knowing how to adapt and change and be able to just listen to the song for like 3 minutes and be able to play something that's gonna, like I said in the recording, build the song. And so that's one of the big things that I always try to do, is like see if they have any background in maybe the style I'm playing, and then hear them in person and just see if we work well together. I mean, that's a very big thing. If you can't work well with your bandmates, maybe it's just they're not meant to be your bandmates.
Sure. Doesn't mean they're a bad instrument. It's just, it is a conversation, and some people are more natural than the others.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know I saw the video of you at pitch meeting with Eric.
Yes.
And I think of Eric because that's kind of what he does with pitch meeting.
Yes.
He's kind of like, all right, tell me your song, but we're going to work the band to do that. And there was that big epic solo at the end of that one. And of course, Eric's working with Grace Bowers, who you introduced me to. Thank you so much for that. We just did an interview with Grace as well. So tell me a little bit about that experience. I like that idea, and there's a couple more of those types of things coming to town, which it's not just an open mic and you come and sing by yourself. It's come with a professional band who's going to help shape your song.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
It was amazing, and pitch meeting, they're the best band I've ever met in Nashville, and they're amazing to be able to, and it doesn't matter what genre you bring. You sign up, you get on that stage, you may give them a number chart, or you just play a little bit of your song for them, and they take it and they shape it in such a way that just brings a whole new meaning to the song. And, it's amazing to be able to go up there and play and have these new ideas be brought into this song. And I mean, that's musicianship for you, is going to other places, bringing your stuff, getting critiques or advice on how to make your song sound so much better and have that feeling really put into it.
Right. Well, and it's also great because as musicians, most musicians are look at me. Mm-hmm. Here's my thing. Let me showcase my thing. And those environments like that are so much of, all right, we're just going to accent your thing.
Yeah.
We're not here to show off my guitar work or my bass playing or this, that, and that. We are here to make your thing, to the next level. And I think that's so great because sometimes, we've all been in the jams where somebody's a little overplaying, a little bit, okay, calm down, leave some notes for the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so great to see that. And I think especially, and this is where I want to transition into talking about young musicians coming up, I see a lot of people come into town and they've what we call woodshedders. They stayed at home and they practice scales and they can play anything.
Yeah.
And especially in this world where like they may even have a little bit of a following online because they've been practicing and showing off. Mm-hmm. But then you get up on stage and play with a band and you play a show. That is a completely different skill set. So, and that's what I love about pitch media. Pitch media is kind of about, all right, let's exercise this different muscle, which is about serving the song, serving the performance.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about obviously you had a young start and you were very good at your craft and your technique. What was it like to then actually start getting out and playing and exercising a different muscle? And if somebody just got to town who is a young player as well, mm-hmm. what advice do you give to them to maybe accelerate getting to that point where you are servicing the song more than yourself?
Definitely. When I first moved to town, one of the big things a lot of my harmonica teachers had told me were when you're playing a song, whether you know it or not, know that one of the main things with harmonica, you don't want to play over the person who's singing the song. It's about the song itself, not those who are playing in that song. And having a solo and everything is great, but it's just sometimes take your time,
Right.
Just like let the song move, breathe a little. And that was one of the big things my harmonica teachers had told me, were like, lay back a little bit, like listen to the song, let yourself feel where it needs to go and how you're gonna accentuate that song and bring it to a place where you're not overplaying and being like this, show-off person,
right.
but really fitting to the song and how it can move people in such a way. And when I had it's definitely a different muscle when playing with a band. When we had first gotten to Nashville, I went to Broadway one night and we were walking past the stage on Broadway. And they had just gotten done playing Orange Blossom Special, which I was practicing with my harmonica teacher, Todd Parrott. He's my more country gospel type lane, and I called him for some help on some songs, and I call to all of my older teachers for help with songs. And I went in there and I was like, I know how to play, or I'm learning how to play Orange Blossom Special. They were like, do you want to get up on stage? And I was like, maybe 9 at the time, I believe. And I was like, sure, I would love to. And I had never really played on stage before besides doing like talent shows where you play to a backing track and you're just playing and trying to do your best for a talent show. And I got up and we did my original Darker Than Blue that I had just played a little bit for you ago. And I had done it and we had been playing it for about 5 minutes. And then my dad told me this afterwards. He was like, they didn't know you didn't know how to stop the band. I didn't know how to stop a band. I was 7, maybe 8, 9. I don't know the exact timeline. But I didn't know how to stop a band, how to signal them, it's time to like end the song. And my dad said that the bassman and the drummer had a look and they were like, okay, it's time to end the song. And it was really cool because I grew up knowing my craft and knowing how to tell when a song was going to end. And so once they had that big build up to the end of the song, I could tell, oh, okay, we're ending it now. And it was one of the really amazing first band moments for me that I had. And afterwards, my dad was like, it sounded like y'all had practiced that for 2 weeks. And I was like, that was awesome.
And it's an interesting thing. I was just talking to Jesse about this. I was born in Nashville, so yeah. I'm one of those unicorns where when I started traveling other places, I started realizing, what, you mean everybody doesn't play really, really well? That's just through where I grew up. And also, in Nashville, because of the level of musicianship, you do get that, it's another muscle, the band leader muscle. Yeah. And because we do a lot of jams, you have to kind of do that, because I've never met these people before. And it's so funny when tourists or people from out of town will come in and they'll go to a jam, you get up and you play with someone, and you get down, they're like, is that your band? You're like, no, I've never met those people before. And they're like, how did you know how to do that? And you're getting up and saying, all right, we're going back to the 1, and now I'll go to the 4. And there's this kind of the language of the Nashville numbering system, but other things like, we're going back to the head or whatever it is, to kind of lead everybody through something like that. That is another skill and another muscle to practice.
Definitely.
So when you, now that you are the singer, so yes, you can have a band leader, but you are often progressing the song and stuff like that. Is that a muscle now that you're kind of growing as well, of how do I signal when we're doing this or moving to that?
It's definitely a muscle I'm starting to grow more. Memphis was a great opportunity for me, going with the Nashville Blues and Roots Society. And it was my first really time leading a band, and we got to practice at our little hotel that we were kind of staying at, or an Airbnb, sorry. That's what we were staying at. But we got to practice, and I got to feel, and I'm like, our bassman, I was just like, okay, you need to focus, and it was just a thing of oh, maybe we do a ta-ta-ta-ta-ta with the drums here, and talking to my guitarist, being like, maybe you can do a little walk down on here, make it sound good as the intro. And it was just really cool to be able to learn that little thing. And I've seen a bunch of times, especially with pitch meeting, Eric takes such charge, and you're going to follow him, because he has that authority to him, and he knows what he's doing so well, because he's done it for so long. You're just like, okay, I trust you, I'm going to follow you. And kind of having that leadership and taking that, what I've seen from him, and taking that and impersonating that into my own kind of leading for the band.
Right. And it is, some of it's theory. I don't know a lot of theory. I was all self-taught, so I had to learn that late in life. But knowing, these things go together, that it's almost kind of math a little bit. But then there's also a feeling, especially like you're at a jam and you're playing, and the bass player starts doing something different. I like that. What's going there? Let me start doing that on top of that. And they go, oh, I see. And it just it evolves on stage, which is scary, because sometimes it's a train wreck. Sometimes not. But it's a thing that is, you never know what's going to come out of that. So have you been, obviously, pitch means a little bit more structured, because you have a band leader, but at these jams, that experience of, wow, that went someplace totally different than I thought it was going to, but that was awesome.
Yeah, I've definitely had that a couple times, and just hearing it, when we first came, actually I think it was about a year or a couple months after we had came to Nashville, we had went to this little songwriter community type jam, where we would go in, we would bring our song, and they'd have a good band behind them, and we would just work through the song. And we kind of had a band leader at that point too. His name was Rusty. And we would go in, and he would take the song, he'd be like, okay, what if we add this chord in here? And you'd just be like, and he would talk to me sometimes. He'd be like, okay, now play something on harmonica here. And I would be like, okay. And I'd hear it, and I'm like, whoa, this brings such a new sound to it. And I would just love where it was going. Or at Twin Kegs, when it's kind of that jam, and someone adds something and you just like, you're like, we go back and forth. And, I love those kind of things where you can like go back and forth with the guitarist and kind of talk with them. And it was one of those things that I always found really cool, just being able to let loose and just have such fun playing, whether it turned out to be a little less working, and then sometimes it turned out to be great.
Right. You never know.
Yeah.
So I know you've got some new music coming out, right?
Yes, I do.
Tell me a little bit about what's coming up.
Yeah, I'm currently in the studio working on one of my blues songs, Took a Man, and I played it at the IBCs, and it's currently in the studio. I have it almost done, and so we're hoping to get that released by, I think, April is when, end of April, beginning of May, probably somewhere in there, hopefully. And it was amazing because it's the first real song that I've gone into the studio to record, and just being in there and having fun. That's a good thing about recording. Like, it's your song and you go in and you have fun, but you're also doing good work to it. Like, you want to go in, you want to do what you have to do, but you also want to have fun, because it's not going to be a good song if you're not having fun making the song. And it was a really amazing process. My guitar teacher is helping to produce it, and so it's going to come out hopefully probably by the end of April or beginning of May, and we're really looking forward to it.
And how do you like the recording process? So you said your guitar teacher is kind of helping produce. Is he doing kind of a little bit of what we talked about a jam? Hey, try this and go there and explore it. Has the song evolved as you've been recording it?
Definitely. My guitar teacher has, like I said, I've gone to him with songs, and he's been like, maybe add this chord in there. And that's what he's done with this song as well. He's like, maybe go here, or maybe like do a da-na-na-na-na-na kind of thing on the song, and just working with him and getting comfortable. And like, one of the big things when I was singing the song, putting my vocals down on the track, was I had never been singing really without a guitar for a while. And I was like, it feels weird to not have this little instrument in front of you and be singing at the same time. And so it was definitely one of those things where I had to be like, okay, I'm going to stand in my room tonight, I'm going to stand in a corner, I'm just going to sing the song. And I had to get used to that recording kind of process, and being able to be like, okay, I'm going to stand here, I'm going to sing, but I'm also going to have that feeling into it as well. So. And
it is, so, a lot of times there's so many bands that I love live, and I'm like, man, I love that sound. And then I go to their album, I'm like, that didn't capture it. It is hard, because it is, you're in separate rooms, you're doing it at different times and things like that. How do you, when you're recording, you kind of were hinting at that, how do you keep that live spirit of that same energy you get in a live performance? Yeah, one of the things that I did was I think about it as if I'm live performing it. And, just even kind of imagining or putting your mindset in that space of, this is my audience. I am singing to an audience here. It's nobody's going to hear it right now, but soon they will. And so kind of just being me and having that same feeling of singing and realizing, this is a performance. I'm not showcasing as much, and I'm not doing this, big solo over here, but still realizing that it's a performance that people are going to be able to listen to as many times as they like. Right. So I'd like to shift gears a little bit. We talked a little bit before about we're starting our Blues in Schools program. And so a big thing we're trying to do is go into schools. This is an art form that a lot of people feel is fading away. Just guitar rock in general kind of faded away, is fading away. I think it's making a comeback. But, so when you are hanging out with your peers who are not necessarily musicians or things like that, and they're like listening to this, the top 40 and things like that, and you say, I'm listening to this, and they go, oh, what is that? How do we get people, younger people interested in these older art forms that may not be as popular now?
Yeah, one of the big things for me when I was young, I didn't listen to a lot of blues even though I was playing it. It was really the part of getting to dissect it through Ronnie Schell's harmonica 1, 2, 3 classes and being like, this is going to help me perfect what I am trying to learn and advance my playing. And, just listening to it, we went down to Muscle Shoals this past weekend and being immersed in that history and being like, oh my gosh, this is where Aretha Franklin played. This is where Leonard Skinner did some of their stuff.
Stones
yeah,
played.
Rolling
Everybody's been down
Stones.
there,
Yeah, everybody. And it was really cool, and it brought such a life. Like learning that history, even with some songs today, like a lot of them, the Fame Studios are still currently having recording sessions in them. And it was amazing to know kind of that history and that pullback of, oh, this is where this happened. This is how this happened. And even hearing the family behind it, like the friendships and everything, and some of the disputes between them, but then they came together through a song.
Right.
And it's a really cool thing to me, and listening to things and being able to sometimes even just play with the song. Be like, here's a song, play what you think might sound good, or just have fun playing it and getting that kind of spark lighting with it.
So I have children myself, some same age, and of course anything Dad introduces is cool. They have to kind of come full circle where they're like, all right, now your music is cool. Mm-hmm. And so it was funny because they got into hip hop for a while, and I'm like, all right, every sample on that, let me play you the jazz record or the funk record or the blues record where that was taken from, and things that it's the building blocks of there. And I was talking to someone the other day where you could almost take all of that eventually goes back to the blues.
Yeah.
It's some kind of, that format is the seeds of so many different types of music that you wouldn't ever thought of that. That's not blues. Well, yeah, it kind of is. That riff there is a very, or that kind of progression. So I found that's one way I've been trying to get at least my younger children into it, is like, hey, let me tell you the kind of what you're saying, the history.
Yeah.
Let's walk back. Let's not just take it at face value. So if you had a peer who doesn't know anything about, this style of music, they're more into pop music, what would be your intro? Let me play you a song. What would be your intro song to try to win somebody over into this style of music?
That's a good question. I mean, like you were saying, a lot of these modern, like pop, country, it all kind of had that root from the blues. And maybe taking it step by step, like taking a song that they love, maybe from pop, say Ariana Grande, or Alicia Keys. Alicia Keys had a lot of pull into that history of the blues, and kind of divulging a little bit step by step backwards and being like what you said, this riff came from this genre and this genre kind of progressed from the blues, and just kind of taking that back step by step and being like, all music comes from one area, and all music is linked together by emotion and the people and the stories that come from, because a country song can have the same story as a blues song. Right. They just have a different way of singing it to you.
Sure, absolutely. So I don't want to keep you too much. I know you've got some other things going on today, but I do want to talk about, we talked about the new albums coming out. Where else are you going to be? Where can people find you, and what's coming up for you?
Yeah, well, anyone can find me on any social media at In the Key of Kiersi. If you don't know how to spell it, it's Kiersi, which I honestly get a lot. They're like, Kiersi? And I'm like, Kiersi, Kiersi. And then in May, I will be going to the Pine Top Blues Jamboree.
that's the one at Ground Zero?
Yeah.
On Top Perkins? Yeah. Okay.
That's May 11th, I believe. And then that next weekend, I will be performing at the Women in Blues Festival in Gainesville, Florida.
Nice. And in town, are you kind of making rotations, playing any regular places? Where could we catch you in town?
Yeah, the local is one of my big things that I've been playing at. I just had a performance there last Friday before the Easter weekend, and so that's one of the big places that I've been playing at locally here. And if you check on my Instagram, I've got a few places. I usually post a day or a few days beforehand if I'm playing anywhere. So yeah.
Okay. Well, perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For coming out and all that you have done for us at the International Blues Challenge and all these things. And we have been so happy to kind of watch you grow and your career going on. And we know there's just big things in store for you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.